After all the sleepless nights and failed remedies, I thought I had learned to expect little from anything promising instant results. Whether it was a special tea, a tapping method, or an oil massage, I had been fooled enough times to grow cautious, maybe even cynical. So when I came across 5 viral lipstick trends that the younger generation swore by not just for beauty, but for confidence, mood, and even memory, I laughed out loud. Lipstick? Helping women my age feel whole again? It sounded absurd. But something inside me, the same voice that told me to try lavender oil and gratitude journaling, whispered again, what if? What if healing could come in unexpected forms? What if, behind those bold colors and glittery tubes, there was something deeper, waiting to be revealed? That's when I made the decision: 1 week, 5 lipsticks, and no expectations. What happened next, I never could have predicted. For as long as I could remember, sleep had been slipping further and further away from me. At first, it was just a few restless nights here and there, nothing too alarming. But by the time I reached my 70s, every night felt like a cruel game of hide and seek, with sleep always one step ahead of me, taunting me as I tossed and turned in a bed that once brought comfort but now felt like a prison of silence. I had tried everything friends recommended, drinking warm milk, counting sheep, even turning off my TV by 8 p.m., but nothing worked. And then, one quiet morning, as I sat with trembling hands wrapped around a cup of tea, I stumbled upon a video on my phone titled 5 Natural Sleep Tricks That Are Changing Lives. I clicked without thinking, desperate and half skeptical, but something in me whispered maybe, just maybe, this would be different. I decided that very day to put each of these methods to the test, documenting every detail, determined to find the truth. What followed shook me more than I ever expected. The first night, I tried what they called the lavender pillow ritual. The method was simple. Add a few drops of lavender essential oil to your pillow before bed. The video host promised that the scent would gently cradle your nervous system. At first, I chuckled how could a smell change my brain? But that night, as the faint aroma filled the room, I felt something unexpected, a wave of calm I hadn't felt in years. My body relaxed, my shoulders softened, and I drifted into a light sleep. But 2 hours later, I woke up choking. The scent had grown stronger and sharper as the pillow warmed. My throat felt dry, my nose congested, and I ended up sitting in the kitchen until sunrise, sipping honey water and wondering if I was allergic. Method 1 had given me a taste of peace and a warning. Not all that soothes is safe. Night 2, I moved on to the 4-7-8 breathing technique. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, exhale for 8. Ancient monks used this to calm their hearts before meditation, the video claimed. I lay in bed, eyes closed, counting the rhythm with the discipline of a soldier. The first few cycles made me dizzy. The 7th cycle made my chest feel tight, but on the 10th round, something strange happened. I felt weightless. My mind, usually racing with regrets and worries about my aching joints, my late husband, my distant children, suddenly felt quiet. For nearly an hour, I hovered on the edge of sleep. But just as I started to doze off, my bladder betrayed me. I scrambled to the bathroom, light flooding my sleepy eyes, and once again, the night was lost. I sat on the toilet, thinking how cruel it is, this aging body, how even the peaceful moments come with a price. The third method was what they called foot soak with Epsom salt and ginger. A soothing remedy from Eastern tradition, it claimed to draw tension and toxins out through the feet. I prepared the basin with care, boiled water, added the herbs, and let my wrinkled feet sink into the warmth. The sensation was heavenly. My legs tingled, my toes relaxed. That night, for the first time in years, I felt as though the weight I carried in my bones had lifted. I crawled into bed with a strange feeling of lightness. I slept 4 whole hours without waking. But when I rose the next morning, my ankles were swollen like ripe fruit. I later found out I had soaked too long, and the heat had triggered my varicose veins. I wept not because of the swelling, but because of the fragile hope that had bloomed and withered in one night. By the 4th method, I was exhausted mentally and physically, but still determined. This one was called Gratitude Journaling Before Sleep. They said that listing 5 things you're thankful for each night shifts your brain out of stress mode. So I sat, pen in hand, and tried to write. At first, it was hard. What could I be thankful for, truly? My health was fading. My husband was gone. My children were busy. But slowly, words began to come. I'm thankful I can still walk on my own. I'm thankful for the neighbor boy who helps carry my groceries. I'm thankful for the morning sunlight. Each sentence brought a tear, then 2, then a flood. That night, I cried myself into a dreamless sleep. And in the morning, I realized, while it hadn't given me rest, it had given me release. Perhaps rest begins not in the body, but in the soul. Finally came the 5th and most mysterious method, midnight body tap. It sounded absurd tapped lightly on certain points on your body while repeating a calming word. The video showed an elderly woman tapping her forehead, collarbone, chest. Sleep, she whispered with each tap. I almost turned it off. But that night, as the clock struck midnight, I gave it a try. I felt foolish, tapping my fragile skin in the dark. Sleep, I whispered, barely believing myself, but with each repetition, my heart slowed. My eyelids drooped, and then silence. Not the anxious ticking silence I knew so well, but a warm, welcoming silence. I slept deeply, fully, for the first time in over a year. When I awoke, sunlight streamed through the curtains, and I felt like I had returned from somewhere far, somewhere healing. Yet, even in victory, tears rolled down my cheeks, not because the method worked, but because it had taken 5 trials, 5 nights, and so much emotional unraveling to find what my body had been crying for all along: care, attention, and faith. I learned that sleep is not just a function of the body, but a conversation with the self. You cannot force it, bargain with it, or beg it to come. You must understand it, nurture it, and sometimes surrender your pride to unlock its doors. Each method taught me something not just about sleep, but about what it means to age with dignity. Some tricks failed, some misled, some healed in ways I hadn't expected. But through it all, I remembered what it feels like to hope again. So to those who lie awake, night after night, staring at ceilings and shadows, I say this: you are not alone. Your journey is not in vain. There is no one-size-fits-all, but there is always something that might work for your body, your mind, your heart. Maybe it's lavender, maybe it's tapping, maybe it's the brave act of writing down your pain. Whatever it is, keep trying. You deserve peace. You deserve sleep. And above all, you deserve to believe that even now, especially no healing, is still possible. After that final night of restful sleep, I found myself standing at the kitchen counter the next morning, staring at my breakfast like it was an enemy. Toast, margarine, a strong cup of instant coffee was my usual routine, but suddenly it felt outdated, almost hostile. The aches in my knees, the stiff fingers that struggled to button my shirt, the burning tension in my lower back, they were still there. The sleep had eased my spirit, yes, but my body still whispered its silent complaints. And I realized then, as sunlight painted golden streaks on my kitchen wall, that the next battle I had to face wasn't in the silence of the night, but in the quiet choices of my plate. Food, they said, could be medicine or poison, and I was going to find out which it truly was. I embarked on a challenge that felt more terrifying than anything I had done in recent years. I would try 5 doctor-recommended diets for seniors, each for a week, and document exactly how my joints and body responded. No shortcuts, no cheating, just raw truth and trembling honesty. I knew from the start it would not be easy. When you're past 60, changing your eating habits is like asking a river to reverse its flow. But the memory of waking up pain-free, even for one night, was a fire that refused to go out. The first diet was the low-inflammatory Mediterranean diet. Olive oil, fatty fish, leafy greens, nuts, and fruits. It sounded beautiful, almost poetic. I filled my cart with salmon, spinach, walnuts, and avocados. That first lunch, with grilled fish and a salad sprinkled with seeds, felt like eating in a spa. But by day 3, my stomach turned on me. I wasn't used to so much oil, so much raw. I missed the warm comfort of rice, the sweetness of ripe bananas, the softness of white bread. And though my energy improved slightly, the pain in my joints remained a dull throb that reminded me healing isn't always pretty. But I pressed on. By the end of the week, I had lost 2 pounds and slept a little better. But my knees still cried out each time I climbed the stairs. It was a noble diet, but not a miracle. Week 2, I shifted to the high calcium joint support plan. This one was popular in the pamphlets they handed out at the clinic. Cottage cheese, milk, sardines, fortified cereals. Strong bones need strong support, the brochure said. I obeyed. My fridge was suddenly white milk, yogurt, tofu, eggs. Something felt wrong. Day 4, I was bloated. My knees didn't feel stronger, but my belly did. Worse, I started to feel sluggish. I called my niece, a nurse, and she told me gently that calcium alone wouldn't help if my body lacked vitamin D to absorb it. I stood in my kitchen, furious not at her, but at myself for trusting the brochure and not my instincts. My body wasn't a lab rat. It was trying to speak, and I had ignored its warnings. By week 3, I was cautious, even fearful, but I wasn't ready to stop. The next approach was the low-carb, anti-sugar plan, a rising trend among older adults trying to tame inflammation. No white rice, no bread, no sweets. My favorite noodle soups became off-limits. I replaced them with boiled chicken, steamed vegetables, and almonds. The first few days were hell. I dreamed of sticky rice and mangoes. My mouth watered every time I passed a bakery. But something strange happened around day 5. My joints felt looser. I could stretch further without flinching. My fingers curled more easily. And though I missed the pleasure of sweetness, I started waking up feeling a little less like a statue. Was this it? Was this the answer? I wasn't sure yet, but for the first time I had hope growing not in my heart, but in my knees. Week 4 brought what they called the plant-based senior cleanse. Beans, lentils, greens, fruits, and absolutely no animal products. I watched a documentary about elderly monks thriving on lentils and rice. I wanted to believe. I made chickpea stews, baked sweet potatoes, drank green smoothies. My digestion improved almost immediately. My skin felt smoother, but the energy, it wavered. By day 6, I was tired, so tired. I missed the grounding flavor of meat, the satisfaction of broth. My joints felt the same, maybe slightly stiffer, and a strange sadness settled in. I couldn't explain it. Maybe it was the lack of warmth in my food. Maybe I needed more than what plants alone could give. I felt like a leaf drifting, nourished, but disconnected. And then came the 5th and final week, the Golden Balance diet, created by an old Vietnamese doctor whose advice had quietly gone viral in senior communities. It wasn't extreme. It didn't ban foods. It simply asked for balanced start the day with warm protein, include turmeric and ginger in cooking, eat smaller portions at night, and avoid cold drinks. That first morning, I had soft-boiled eggs with steamed pumpkin and a pinch of turmeric salt. My body felt hugged from the inside. Lunch was rice, green beans, and slow-cooked chicken with ginger. Dinner was just a bowl of broth. And something incredible happened on day 3. I woke up and forgot about my pain. I only realized it had vanished when I reached for my cane and didn't need it. My fingers weren't swollen. My back didn't scream when I bent to tie my shoes. It wasn't magic. It was consistency, warmth, tradition, a food rhythm that respected my age without punishing my cravings. By the end of that 5th week, I cried again, but this time, not out of frustration or defeat. I cried because I felt like I had come home. I remembered how my mother used to cook gentle flavors, warm bowls, food that respected the body instead of overwhelming it. All this time, I had chased trends, swallowed pills, bought expensive supplements when the real healing had been hidden in the meals of my childhood, foods of patience and purpose. Aging didn't mean starvation or deprivation. It meant listening, adapting, honoring what the body whispers in its tired language. Now, every morning, I stand at the same kitchen counter with purpose. I no longer fear breakfast. I greet it, I cook with intention, with love. Not every meal is perfect, and not every day is pain-free, but my body is no longer an enemy. It's a companion I'm learning to feed, soothe, and forgive. And as I prepare turmeric tea at dusk and lay my lavender-scented eye mask on the nightstand, I realize healing doesn't arrive with fanfare. It arrives quietly, in the rhythm of breath and the flavor of food, in the silence between aches and the return of small joys like climbing stairs without fear or holding a pen without pain. To those still searching, still struggling, still fighting each meal like it's a war, I say this: don't give up. Your answer might not come in a bottle, but in a bowl. You deserve to taste comfort again, to chew without dread, to rise each morning not bracing for pain but welcoming light. Let food be your friend. Let healing begin at your own table. It had been 2 months since I first dared to shake my routine, and my life was no longer the same. I had rediscovered sleep through gentle rituals, reclaimed movement in my joints with humble meals, and now, for the first time in years, I stood in front of the mirror and didn't feel like a stranger in my own skin. My knees still clicked, yes, my back still creaked, but I could walk to the garden without wincing. I could sit through a phone call without shifting in pain. Yet beneath the surface, there was a different Akion I hadn't yet dared to face. My memory, my mind, my sense of self. It started with little things. Forgetting the name of a neighbor's dog, walking into the kitchen only to stand there, wondering why I came, misplacing my glasses while they rested on my head. At first I laughed it off. Old age, I joked to my reflection. But deep down, a quiet fear took root. What if one day I forgot more than names or errands? What if I forgot faces or voices? What if I forgot me? The fear grew louder after a conversation with my eldest son. He asked if I remembered the story of his first bicycle, the one we assembled together in the driveway. I didn't. I smiled, nodded, pretended, but later that night I cried alone, in bed, mourning a memory I hadn't even known I'd lost. That's when I decided to test the brain-boosting exercises the clinic pamphlets and TV doctors kept talking about. I would try 5 different techniques, each for a few days, to see if I could sharpen the fading edges of my mind. I wasn't chasing miracles. I just wanted to feel like myself again. The first method was called dual in-back training, a high-level memory game said to improve cognitive flexibility. A young volunteer from the community center helped set up an app on my tablet. It's like playing Simon Says, he said with a grin, but for the brain. I followed the colored squares, tried to match the patterns, and felt like a clumsy schoolgirl all over again. The first few rounds gave me a headache. My fingers hesitated. My brain fumbled. But by day 3, something shifted. I could feel the gears grinding, working, refusing to rust. I remembered where I put my cane without searching. I recalled what I'd eaten the day before, but the game was exhausting. And by the end of the week, I felt less invigorated than drained. Still, I couldn't deny the small glimmers of clarity. My brain, though old, still wanted to dance. The second technique was one I'd once scoffed at daily crossword puzzles. I had always thought of them as idle distractions, but now I approached them like sacred rituals. I chose the easiest ones first, then slowly moved to more difficult grids. Each word I filled in felt like a thread tying me to the world. A 5-letter fruit that keeps doctors away. I whispered the clue, smiling as the answer apple appeared in my head like a friend long forgotten. By the 4th puzzle, I was finishing whole pages. And yet, beneath the joy, I noticed something darker. When I couldn't find an answer, frustration welled up fast and hot. I slammed the pencil down more than once. These weren't just games, they were mirrors. And sometimes, I didn't like what I saw. The third exercise came from a neurologist who believed in music and memory recall therapy. Play the songs of your youth, he advised, and memories will come flooding back. So I dusted off my old CD player and sat by the window with trembling hands. I played a song my husband used to human old Vietnamese folk ballad, and suddenly, time shattered. I was back in our small kitchen, barefoot, laughing as he spun me in slow circles, the scent of jasmine rice in the air. Tears streamed down my cheeks before I could stop them. That night, more memories surfaced: my children's voices as toddlers, my mother's lullaby, the night my youngest broke his arm and I held him till morning. These weren't facts or figures. They were me. Pieces I thought were gone, awakened by a few forgotten melodies. My heart swelled with a pain too beautiful to bear. Of all the methods I had tried so far, none had touched me this deeply. But I couldn't stop there. The fourth approach was mindful movement with Tai Chi, taught by a soft-spoken woman at the community park. "Your brain follows the body's breath," she said. "So move slow, and the mind will slow too." At first, I stumbled. The poses were unfamiliar, my balance unsure, but the rhythm was forgiving. Each movement felt like a conversation between memory and muscle. After a few days, I no longer thought about which foot to move next. My body remembered for me. The fog in my mind thinned. I began to notice colors again, the exact shade of the hibiscus outside, the sparkle of sunlight on dew. It wasn't just my brain waking up, it was my awareness. I started reading again, just a few pages each morning. My thoughts, once scattered like broken glass, began to gather like pearls on a string. The final method was as strange as it was personal storytelling journaling. Not lists or facts, but full stories from my life. My granddaughter gave me a thick notebook and said, "Tell me who you were before I met you." I hesitated. Could I still write like I used to? Would the words come? The first entry was Stiff Me wedding day. But once the pen moved, the memories spilled like rain. The color of my dress, the way his hand trembled, the scent of the temple incense. And as I wrote, I remembered more than moments. I remembered feelings: love, hope, fear, joy, and then something miraculous happened. I remembered the bicycle story, the one my son had asked about weeks before. I wrote every detail: the rusted handlebars, the way we celebrated with ice cream after his first ride, the moment he fell and I kissed his scraped knee. I called him that night and told the story, word for word. He was quiet at first, then he laughed, and then he cried. "You remembered," he said. "You remembered." That night, I didn't sleep easily, not because I was anxious, but because I was alive. My mind buzzed with stories, with names, with songs. I realized that memory isn't just about holding on to information. It's about holding on to identity, to love, to the quiet moments that built us. And sometimes, memory doesn't need science. It needs music, motion, writing. It needs a reason to stay. So now, every morning, I play one old song, stretch in the garden, and write a paragraph of my life. I don't do it to fix my brain. I do it to greet it. To say, I'm still here. Because memory is not a place we lose. It's a place we must return to again and again with grace and courage. And to those whose minds feel cloudy, whose stories feel lost, I say this: they are still inside you. You are not broken. You are unfolding. After rediscovering parts of myself through stories and melodies, after lifting the heavy curtain of forgetfulness that had clouded my days, I thought I had finally reached a place of peace. My sleep was deeper, my steps lighter, my memories more vivid. But just as I began to feel whole again, a new problem rose like a tide. The pain in my hands returned. It started as a gentle stiffness in the morning, but by the end of the week, the ache had traveled up my wrists and nestled itself deep within my shoulders. My knuckles throbbed like old drums. My elbows felt like rusted hinges. The exercises, the food, the calm, all of it seemed to falter against this one stubborn enemy. The truth was, I was getting older, and my joints, they were pleading for help. I had heard stories neighbors swore by certain pills. Family members sent me photos of miracle supplements, glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, collagen, turmeric capsules. Promises of relief were everywhere. I was skeptical. I had lived long enough to see trends rise and vanish like smoke, but the pain wouldn't let me ignore it. I missed holding a teacup without wincing, missed writing letters without fire crawling up my forearm. So I made a decision I didn't take lightly. I would try 5 of the most popular joint supplements, not all at once. One at a time, each for a few days. I'd listened carefully to what my body had to say. The first was glucosamine sulfate, marketed like gold for aging joints. The label claimed it could rebuild cartilage and lubricate joints from the inside. I swallowed the first capsule with warm water and waited. 2 days passed, then 4. By the 5th day, I noticed less cracking in my knees. The stiffness in the morning softened slightly, but there was a strange side effect. I began to feel bloated, uncomfortably so. My ankles swelled. My stomach made noises I hadn't heard in years. At first, I thought it was coincidence, but when the bloating worsened, I paused. I visited my doctor, who explained that some people with shellfish allergies react to this type of supplement. Shellfish? I hadn't eaten shrimp in over a decade. I had no idea that the source of healing could be quietly betraying me from the inside. I stopped the pills that night. Lesson 1. Even promises wrapped in science can come with a hidden sting. Next, I moved on to chondroitin, often paired with glucosamine but available on its own. This time, I was cautious, keeping a journal, measuring every subtle change. The supplement was easier on my stomach, and after a few days, I began to feel more fluid in my motions. I could rise from the couch with only one hand for support. Encouraged, I continued for a full week. But by day 7, my digestion slowed dramatically. I felt sluggish and heavy, like my intestines had fallen asleep. I also developed a headache that lingered like a fog. When I read the fine print, I realized that chondroitin can interfere with blood-thinning medications, a detail not mentioned in the happy ads or glowing reviews. I had been treading a dangerous line. I tossed the bottle away with trembling fingers, realizing how easily one could be hurt by something so simple. The third supplement was MSM-methylsulfonylmethane, praised for its anti-inflammatory magic. I was intrigued by how many people swore it had changed their lives. I ran again at 75, one review claimed. I didn't need to run. I just wanted to reach for a glass of water without pain. The capsules were large, and they had a faint sulfur smell that turned my stomach. But I pushed through. By the 4th day, I noticed something curious. My hands felt warmer, more flexible. I could twist the doorknob without clenching my jaw, but then came the dizziness. It started in the afternoon like a carousel spinning too fast. One moment I was reading a book. The next I was grabbing the edge of the table. My blood pressure had dropped, and I knew I had to stop. As I lay on the couch that night, heart pounding, I realized just how fragile the balance was. My body was trying to tell me something again. Relief should never come at the cost of safety. The 4th option was hydrolyzed collagen, which many said not only helped joints but improved skin and nails. The powder dissolved into my morning tea like snow. It was tasteless, odorless, and for a while, I thought this might be it. By day 3, I noticed my skin felt less dry. By day 5, my knees didn't crack so loudly. There was a gentleness in my movements that hadn't been there before. But something else happened that terrified me. I began to feel short of breath. At first, I blamed it on the weather. But then, one morning, I woke up gasping, heart racing. My son rushed me to the hospital. It turned out that collagen supplements can, in rare cases, trigger allergic reactions in people with certain autoimmune conditions. I had brushed it off because it was just protein. That night in the hospital bed, the 4 attached to my arm, I stared at the ceiling and thought, how many of us trust blindly? How many of us take a pill and hope without knowing how it might unravel us? After I was discharged, weak but wiser, I almost gave up. I was tired of pills, tired of pain, tired of the hope that kept betraying me. But there was one more on the list: curcumin extract, the concentrated power of turmeric, often called nature's anti-inflammatory. I almost didn't try it, but something about its earthiness called to me. I bought a small bottle from a reputable herbalist, ensuring it included black pepper extract to aid absorption. I began with half doses, cautious and quiet. The first 2 days passed without incident. No swelling, no dizziness, no breathlessness. By the 4th day, something changed. I stood from my chair with no grimace. I opened a jar of honey with both hands. I walked the garden path and barely noticed my knees. It wasn't a miracle. It was comfort, gentle, deep, nourishing. It felt like a warm hand placed on my shoulder saying, "You're okay." I stayed on curcumin for 3 weeks. The results were steady, modest, but powerful. I had fewer flare-ups, better sleep, and less reliance on painkillers. It didn't erase the arthritis, but it made me feel in control again. It taught me that nature, when treated with respect and understanding, can often do what chemicals cannot. And so now, the supplement shelf in my cabinet is empty, except for one small bottle of turmeric capsules, neatly labeled and taken with gratitude. I no longer chase pills like promises. I've learned to question, to research, to listen not just to the ads and brochures, but to my own body. And above all, I've learned that healing is not just about relief. It's about respect for the body, for the process, for the precious years still ahead. To all who suffer in silence, who fumble through bottles and dosages, who take one more capsule with trembling hope, I say this: be brave, but be careful. Not all healing comes in a bottle. But when it does, it should never leave you breathless in a hospital bed. The body deserves more. You deserve more. After that terrifying night in the hospital, as I lay on a firm white mattress under humming fluorescent lights, I found myself staring up at the ceiling again. Only this time, I wasn't thinking about joint pain. I was thinking about sleep. Not the kind of sleep that visits briefly between bathroom trips or gets chased away by pain, but the kind of deep, warm slumber I hadn't known in years. After all I had been through changing my food, challenging my mind, calming my joints, I realized there was one enemy still undefeated, one ghost that kept haunting every night: insomnia. The kind that clung to my skin, followed me into the sheets, and wrapped itself around my thoughts until morning. Even with pain somewhat managed and memory sharpened, I would lie in the quiet hours with eyes wide open, listening to the clock tick and shadows stretch across my walls. Sleep came like a cruel tease, barely brushing me before yanking away again. And so, I made one last promise to myself. I would try 5 natural home remedies, no pills. No chemical sand. I would not stop until one gave me peace. The first method was simple, almost poetic: a warm banana peel tea. It sounded ridiculous at first. Who drinks banana water? But the recipe was everywhere in senior health forums. Simmer a whole banana, peel and all, with cinnamon and a touch of honey. The magnesium and potassium, they claimed, would soothe the muscles and lull the brain into rest. That night, I boiled the mixture and sipped slowly. It tasted earthy, strange, but comforting in a way I hadn't expected. I turned off the lights and lay still. To my amazement, I dozed off faster than usual, but woke again at 1:47 a.m., wide-eyed and buzzing. My heart wasn't racing, but my mind was. The tea had helped me fall, not stay. Still, it was the closest I had come in a long time. Encouraged but unsatisfied, I moved on. Next, I tried the method my grandmother once swore by: rubbing a dab of warm sesame oil on the soles of the feet before bed. It was said to draw heat downward, calming the heart and grounding the soul. The sensation was oddly soothing, like being pulled gently into the earth. I massaged the oil in circles, whispering a prayer I hadn't said in decades. That night, something unexpected happened, not sleep but silence. My mind didn't chatter. I wasn't anxious. I simply lay there, breathing. But minutes turned into an hour, and the sleep never came. My body was relaxed, but my eyes remained stubbornly awake. I sat up and cried not because I was sad, but because even peace couldn't summon sleep. My grandmother's voice echoed faintly in my mind, and I missed her with a depth I hadn't felt in years. Perhaps her remedy wasn't broken, perhaps I was. The third method came from a Buddhist monk's teachings, chanting a single word while tapping the center of the chest. So, they said, I am that which is eternal. I doubted my ability to sit still for more than a few minutes, but desperation can make believers out of skeptics. I dimmed the lights, pressed 2 fingers against my sternum, and whispered, so. At first it felt mechanical, but after 10 minutes, I wasn't counting anymore. My breath slowed, my shoulders softened. My thoughts, which usually jump from old regrets to future fears, dissolved like mist, and then blackness. I woke up 6 hours later with a start. My blanket had not moved. My arms were still in the same place. It was not a full night, but it was pure. I wept with gratitude. Still, I didn't trust it yet. One night wasn't a cure. I wanted consistency, and so I pressed forward. The fourth method was a whisper from the past, placing a sliced red onion near the bed. An old Vietnamese remedy meant to absorb fire from a restless body. I laughed at the idea. It sounded like folklore, something too silly for my tired heart to believe in. But I had come this far. That evening, I placed half an onion on a ceramic dish near my pillow. The smell was strong at first, almost offensive. But then, strangely, it faded. I lay back and waited. My body was restless, my nose twitched. The hours passed. 12, 0, 1, 15, 2, 4, no sleep. Only a strange sense of being watched. I turned on the lamp, irritated and exhausted. The onion had not stolen my fire. It had only stolen my patience. I threw it out the next morning, more bitter than amused, but it was the fifth method that changed everything. It was something I had read years ago and forgotten. The 2 a.m. oil trick with peppermint and eucalyptus balm applied behind the ears, and at the back of the neck only at the moment the body stirs awake in the night. When the liver releases tension around 2-3 a.m., the article explained, a gentle scent can guide the nervous system back to sleep. That night, I placed the balm beside my bed. I fell asleep around 10:30, unsure what would come. And then, right on cue, I awoke at 2:12 a.m. But this time, I did not panic. I sat up slowly, applied the oil behind my ears, massaged it gently, and lay back down. What happened next was not sleep in the way you expect it, but a descent. I sank. My limbs grew heavy. My breathing became like ocean waves. And then I was gone. I woke at 6:45 to birdsong. No dreams, no tossing, no bathroom trip, just stillness. And for the first time in a decade, I had not felt the night. I had drifted through it. I used the balm every night for the next 2 weeks. The results were never dramatic, but they were real. Less waking, less panic, less exhaustion dragging me through the morning. It was not a miracle. It was a map back to a part of myself I thought had been lost to age and worry. I had found the path not through pills or potions, but through patience, rhythm, scent, and trust. Now, every night before bed, I place the balm beside me like a sacred object. I make my banana tea not for its effect, but for its comfort. I rub my feet not for sleep, but to remind myself that I deserve care. I chant sometimes when the world feels heavy, and I no longer fear the moment I wake at 2 a.m. because I know exactly what to do. To every soul lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling and begging for mercy, I say this: you are not broken. Your body is not your enemy. The path to sleep is not paved with force, but with gentleness. Try what speaks to you. Stay curious, stay brave, and believe, even after years of emptiness, that one night, one true night of peace can return. These days, I don't chase sleep, I welcome it. I don't fear aging. I meet it with grace, ritual, and yes, even color. One of those 5 lipsticks? I still wear it every morning. Not because it makes me look younger, but because it reminds me I'm still me. A woman who has faced pain, memory loss, restless nights, and the quiet ache of forgotten joy and still finds ways to shine, gently, honestly, in every wrinkle and every word. So, if you've ever doubted whether something small can make a difference, whether a cup of tea, a soft chant, or a streak of crimson on your lips can truly change something inside, you let this be your sign. Try it. Feel it. And when you do, come back here and tell me your story. Leave a comment. Share your moment. Because someone out there might just be waiting for your voice to help them sleep again, smile again, or simply believe again.